up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. So in light of all this Jonathan Majors news, I didn't cover it because I was in the middle of doing stuff, but Marvel dropped him literally right away. Like they wasted no time. But I'll give you my thoughts on that after we check this out. But we're going to go ahead and see what the MCU plan looks like without Kang. Let's check this out.
Jonathan Majors has officially been fired by Marvel Studios after he was found guilty in court yesterday. And now all eyes are looking at Marvel Studios wondering what's next
going to happen next.
How do they now move forward in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with or without Kang the Conqueror being the main villain of the MCU? Well, according to multiple reports from many different insiders, it looks like we have a decent idea of what Marvel Studios' plans are moving forward in the MCU, and it sounds like they are indeed going to move forward without Kang. And we did talk yesterday about how Avengers the Kang Dynasty is most likely not the title of that anymore. In fact, one insider yesterday has backed up his claim that he made in the past that the film really is no longer Avengers the Kang Dynasty, but is simply Avengers 5 right now. But we could essentially have a title for it, which we're going to talk about in this video, and of course talk about how Marvel is moving forward and what their plans and focus are going to be in the MCU. So if you're new, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news, and if you subscribe and leave a comment, you're automatically entered in our giveaway for a chance to win a PS5, an Xbox Series X, some Marvel Legends items, and some DC items. The winner picks one item, and we pick one winner at the end of each month. Now, based off of what some insiders are stating, it sounds like we're not going to see the next big bad, the big bad of the multiverse saga, until either right before Avengers Secret Wars or in Avengers Secret Wars itself. What Marvel Studios is apparently going to do is focus on individual stories, with a plan of slowly building up to the threat that we'll eventually see in Avengers Secret Wars. However, this does not mean that they are scrapping everything that has happened in Phase 4 and Phase 5. I've seen a lot of people talking about this online, but let's be clear, Marvel Studios is not scrapping the multiverse saga. It is still the multiverse saga. The multiverse is still going to play a huge part of it. Loki Season 1 and Season 2 still happened. Loki still made the sacrifice to allow the multiverse to exist. Plus, we have projects like Deadpool 3 coming up, which is a huge multiversal film. Plus, Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Marvel is already too far into the multiverse saga to completely scrap it.
Yeah, I don't see them doing that.
The multiverse exists,
like, why would
incursions are happening, and our universe, the 616 universe, is going to fall apart. Alex P. from the Cosmic Circus replied to this tweet today, stating they don't need to recast Kang. Marvel needs to completely pivot away from the entire Kang storyline, and everyone can just pretend Phase 4 never happened. I understand this thinking, and I'm sure it was an option for Marvel Studios, but here's what Alex P. said in reply to this. They aren't going to do that. Their plan at the moment is to focus on individual story arcs like Devil Reign, the rise of the Midnight Suns, the coming of mutants, while slowly building up to a threat beyond the multiverse that we will never see until 616 is in absolute shambles. Now, I don't think this is a terrible idea, and I definitely don't think that Marvel Studios should scrap the whole multiverse saga. Because, let's face it, they could simply say Phase 4 and Phase 5 were a different saga. They were the multiverse saga. We had some multiverse events happen in these two phases, but now in Phase 6 and beyond, we're going to just dive right into the mutant saga. And it sounds like that's somewhat what they're doing. According to Daniel RPK, right now, Marvel Studios is working on their first X-Men project, which could be introduced before Secret Wars, because it would definitely get people excited for the MCU again with the introduction of the mutants, which Marvel really needs right now, especially with the firing of Jonathan Majors as Kang, and it would tease Phase 7 to get people excited for that as well. Plus, mutants are going to be a huge part of the multiverse saga either way, because Deadpool 3 and Secret Wars, we're going to see a lot of X-Men. But slowly building up to a villain who is seemingly going to be controlling the multiverse is a great way to go while focusing on other major teams and characters. This is a good way to go. Focus more on the individual stories, because let's face it, the storytelling hasn't been, let's just say, what it was in the past. We've had some good ones here and there, but nothing compared to like what the MCU used to be. But as far as the villain is concerned, it seems like Alex Perez is possibly teasing the Beyonder. Now, according to previous reports, a Kang Beyonder variant was supposed to be the main villain for for Secret Wars, and there's no reason that Marvel Studios simply can't keep the Beyonder part of that. There's no reason why they can't just ditch the Kang part and keep the Beyonder as the main villain. After all, that is what happens in the comics. In both stories, the Beyonder is behind everything.
Then that would
and you
kind
could
of make
introduce
sense.
him very slowly in the MCU. But he is not the only villain that works. Of course, Doctor Doom would work as well, as Doctor Doom is really the other main villain of the Secret Wars stories. Now, I mentioned we could possibly have a title for the next Avengers film, because according to recent reports, Kang Dynasty is no longer Kang Dynasty, it's just Avengers 5. And according to insider Jeff Snyder, Avengers Kang Dynasty is essentially Secret Wars Part 1 now, with the actual Secret Wars film being Part 2. Yesterday he tweeted, "Scoop confirmed. I told you that the next Avengers movie wouldn't be called the Kang Dynasty. The name Kang only conjures thoughts of Jonathan Majors. I said this before it was revealed that Marvel hired Waldron, and stood by it when the trades kept calling it Kang Dynasty." And he backed up this in a highlighted report from The Hollywood Reporter. The highlighted part reads, "In November, Marvel hired Loki creator Michael Waldron to work on a new draft of what was to have been Kang Dynasty, but is now being referred to as Avengers 5, according to sources." Then Jeff Snyder tweeted again, "Effectively, Secret Wars is now a two-part conclusion to the Avengers saga." And we won't dive too much into that. It's very clear that moving forward in the next saga, it's really going to focus on the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, but the Avengers will still be there. They're not just going to go away, but they won't be the main focus anymore. Now, something really important to note is that Marvel Studios has probably had these plans in place for a very long time now. Some people are asking the question, how could these people know this already? They just fired Jonathan Majors. Well, it's really simple. Marvel Studios and Disney knew that it was a possibility that Jonathan Majors was going to be found guilty. And if he was to be found guilty, which he was, they would have to have a plan in place on how to move forward after. They're not just going to sit and wait to find out what happens, then go, "Oh crap, now we have to figure out what to do." No, since March, they have been figuring out what they want to do if he is found guilty and how to move forward in the MCU either without Kang or recasting him. So Marvel has most likely had a plan in place for a pretty long time. They've essentially had 9 months to make a contingency plan in case Jonathan Majors was found guilty and they had to fire him. It is also worth noting that they could have actually let go of Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror a little bit ago, just simply haven't announced it publicly, for whatever reason. But I'll summarize what the reported plan is now. Marvel Studios will move forward without Kang the Conqueror. He could appear for continuity purposes in the MCU, but if he does appear, it will either be CGI or they will recast the character and a new actor will play him, and he'll probably usher in a new villain. If you watched my video yesterday, you know that it's really easy to say that Kang is not a problem anymore, thanks to Loki and the TVA pruning every Kang that they could find. It's actually quite simple. Moving forward, Marvel Studios will begin to focus on writing quality projects, focusing on introducing new heroes and new teams like the Midnight Suns. This makes sense because we know that pretty much everything is going to come together, and every team is going to come together in Avengers Secret Wars. Then they'll work their way up to Avengers Secret Wars Part 1 and Part 2. The multiverse will fall apart, and a multiversal Avengers team will save everything. But then moving forward after that, we will have a soft reboot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which we need now. I'm not saying that this multiverse saga isn't salvageable. I think it really, really is, and I think Deadpool 3 is going to give us a lot of hope. And if Marvel can just nail some really good projects and nail a new villain, it could still be an absolutely incredible saga. But let me know your thoughts about what Marvel Studios' new plan is in the comments down below, and who do you think should be the new villain? Should it be Doom? Should it be the Beyonder? Or somebody else? Let us know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest MCU news. You can always follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.
Well, you know, they could go about this a couple of different ways, which would work. Getting entirely rid of Kang and that whole situation, I don't think would be a good idea because stuff has already happened. So it kind of makes sense to leave it there with all the mutants and variants and things like that. It can easily be worked on and worked around. He can come back as somebody else. You know, it makes me, it kind of makes me think back at how Loki season 2 ended, and I'm like, you know, I feel like they did things strategically, as far as Marvel, he mentioned something that I didn't even think about. They could have already told him that he was going to be let go and not said anything to the public yet until they were absolutely sure. They could have had this conversation with him already. He could have already known that his career was on the line, as we all kind of suspected. Um, a lot of people were absolutely shocked that Marvel immediately fired him. Um, I was saying this before. I said this in one of the videos that I did a reaction to in regards to Jonathan Majors. But I mean, as a business like Marvel, as a big business like that, when something like this happens, you can't just sit around and wait to see what happens and then make moves. You've got to have a backup plan. That's with any business in general, with anything. You know, you always have to have a backup plan just in case something like this happens. So when one of your main guys whose career is starting to skyrocket goes down in a situation like this, like he did back in March, them hiring someone who was already in the works of, they, from what I read somewhere, that they had already rewritten the script. They already had plans and work in the works for what would happen if he did um turn out to be guilty. And I feel like as a business, it's a shock to us because it happened so fast, but maybe it had already happened. Maybe they already told him, like, look, if you are found guilty, just know you are terminated. It's done. um and so, you know, I mean, they've got all these things coming out that they have to prepare for. They can't just sit back and wait with their arms crossed, you know, like we were. We were sitting back waiting to see what happened, but they, in the back end, you know, had to make moves. They had to put people in place. Maybe they've already called out to different actors to, you know, take his place, rewriting scripts, figuring out how they're going to make things work. Now that it's not called King Avengers King Dynasty, it's called Avengers 5. And I think it's kind of a cool idea for it to be called Part 1 and Part 2 when it comes to the Secret Wars and stuff. Um, they can do a lot. They can do a lot. I just feel like I just hope that they do it right. That, you know, taking Jonathan Majors out is not going to mess anything up. You know, I feel like they should just kind of build off of what has already happened. You know, it's unfortunate for Jonathan Majors, but, you know, I mean, at this point, it is what it is. They couldn't sit back and do nothing and wait. Like, they already had a plan in place. I feel like it was just kind of a blast. Like, he's found guilty. Well, half hour later, he just got fired. Like, I feel like this was already in the works. Jonathan Majors already knew what was going to happen. It was probably no surprise to him, as it was. I think the timing of it was what shocked us, but we can't sit here and think that they didn't have a backup plan. You know what I mean? But whatever it is that they do going forward with this, I hope that they've got some good writers. I hope that they rewrote whatever it is that they rewrote the right way, so we can actually get some good quality stuff and not feel like, oh, they just did this because, or they just threw this person in there because. You know, I think us as fans, and I didn't grow up on the comics, I didn't follow the comics, I'm just a fan who is understanding how everything works. I want to be able to still be on this momentum and flow of how everything is intertwining and how everything is kind of connecting. I don't want to get to a point where I feel like, oh man, that took me out because I know they only did this because, or they only wrote this way because. Like, I'm hoping that they do everything seamlessly. So we'll see. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you enjoyed you know, my take on it, and give me your opinions of what you think this is, how is this going to affect the future of Avengers King Dynasty, or what was King Dynasty. What do you think is going to happen with everything? Leave your comments down below, and if you haven't done so, subscribe to my channel, hit like, share, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you guys can get notified whenever I pop up on your feed. I'll see you guys later. Toodles!